Now, that staggered death might have been enough for Gen.G to say, look, this is fine, and you go back to all the decisions, all the playmaking. It came in strong there. Just Gen.G showing their strength, and that was an incredible show there in the late game, G-Clef.
I think Hooligan had a critical mistake dying around 16 when they had a double tempo up in the top and the mid. It was a crazy time to be in that positioning. I think he's regretting really hard. Who's on the screen right in the middle, where because Diablo, when Tis is actually on a Diablo, a very aggressive tank, he doesn't play the same. He was actually losing it at the beginning. Hooligan was winning big time, and then he just suddenly came back. He had a big throw in the middle. I think that actually cost him the game big time.
I do think it kind of set them back, but I think another thing to bring up that was very important, again, that was a top and middle shrine type situation, and Hooligan owned the vision. He thought he was safe, but I immediately pointed out, whoever controls this vision, that's going to be important. But Gen.G just did the very obvious thing of going, well, if you control vision, this is the most aggressive, obvious position that most people take. They just blind shot into it and was like, okay, Hooligan's on an island, now Hooligan's gone. It was, for me, I looked at that as a bit more on the impressive on Gen.G just kind of abusing the information, and it feels like that is, to me, at least the standout thing between Gen.G and a lot of the world is they really love manipulating their information.
Sometimes all it takes is small mistakes, and Gen.G will just run with it, and that's the difference because it felt very measured. It was 16-16 going into that temple phase, and then next thing you know, 2 to 3 minutes later, it's over. It's like, what happened? And Gen.G can do that to you. The amount of pressure, that high-octane pace that we know they like to play with is so incredibly powerful in these games. Ballistix, they did well to take the fight to them, I think, in the early part of the game, but beyond that, it was the back-and-forth battle, and the minute late game came in, it just seemed like Ballistix ran out of steam, and Gen.G was just getting started.
Yeah, not that Ballistix played a bad game. Gen.G actually held that advantage and just kept on rolling with it. Like they got the control of the camp at the top. So with the Hanzo, they have really quick time clear with the boss. So they never let go of that macro for themselves. So Ballistix, they kind of have to follow, and within that time, they can't really go for the boss. They have to clear the top. So they had no choice to make a move. And we did see SC going in all the way into the middle alone, but that was a little bit lucky of a help from the boss as well. But I think Ballistix just got a little bit unlucky in game number 1. I think that decided lots of things as well. Gen.G just taking the lead. I think we do have to see game 2 to see who comes on top, though.
So keeping that in mind now, knowing that Ballistix had the opportunity, they ended up selecting the battleground of Sky Temple to be able to kick things off here. You know, is there anything, no losing number 1, that you go, do we see the adjustment? You go, we want battleground pick, or do you stick to the Korean Classic, go with the first pick, and, you know, kind of put yourself at the will of Gen.G, if you will?
I think it is going to be the first pick, very likely, because I think depending on because of the draft, how they were actually betting against the flex and picking the tanks first, which is very unusual. It didn't really happen too many times during phase number 1 and 2. So they're awfully having a different style of drafting. I think they're actually clashing against each other today. That was a strategy to actually bet against the flex, which they happen to be doing the exact same thing against each other. So it's going to be pretty fun. I don't exactly know. I think it's going to be Ballistix first pick. Maybe Gen.G will just take us to Battlefield of Eternity and show that mad rich Hanzo play once again.
Well, according to some of the numbers here, if we were going to stick to, you know, the pattern of Gen.G priority, the top 2 battlegrounds going to be Tomb of the Spider Queen, Volskaya Foundry. We know Volskaya Foundry is not going to be an option, so assuming that we do see that first pick, it's going to be Tomb of the Spider Queen coming up. Yeah. And, you know, science there. I'm no wizard. That's just looking at basic numbers here, ladies and gentlemen. Here, Tomb of the Spider Queen, and I'm concerned if I'm Ballistix, just because Gen.G, I feels like one of the only teams in the world outside of the region of Europe that I go, Tomb of the Spider Queen, I don't want to play you.
I will say that whether it's a Reina or a Phoenix, I think there's going to be high priority for that hero when it comes to the side of Ballistix, maybe even first pick on that Phoenix. Obviously, the Hanzo is still powerful, not nearly as powerful in some people's eyes as the Phoenix there, but I think that if you're Ballistix, you need that on your side. You need some type of control. It plays directly to their style. If they want to go Leeming, if they want to go Tankus behind that, those are things that we know work on this battleground. You mentioned the Lunara. That's come out, I believe, twice this phase, so it is something that they can continue to play around that fits their playstyle here on Tomb of the Spider Queen without giving too much up to your opponent.
Well, we're about to find out here what we're going to see on Tomb of the Spider Queen as we're getting into draft for game 2 between Ballistix and Gen.G. Gen.G is a hero who we often look at, and we go, especially at the Eastern scene, you know, a very high prominence, always taken off the battleground. But Tomb of the Spider Queen with the wave clear dependence and things of the like, you question, will it ever kind of make it through? And the answer is very quickly, no, Gen.G take it off. But I like the fact that we do see the Diablo ban here for Ballistix. I really want to see, as you brought up earlier, G-Clef, that higher priority into the warrior pool here for them.
I would like to see Ballistix actually stealing away that Junkrat pick instead of banning it out.
Yeah.
And try to focus on something else, because the reset will be looking for that Junkrat for the harassment to cancel all the turn-ins with the gems. This is the map where reset would just excel on that Junkrat, also having the extra wave clear as well. So having that away, maybe this is the best map for Taika's SDE, even though he had a pretty good showing in game 1. I wish they just steal that pick away.
We also saw the Junkrat during the second ban, and I think that's going to be another hero here that will come into play. The Rainer is going to come in there, will concede the Phoenix, but the high priority on that hero is going to be there. The hero's specialization for that of SE, obviously the flexibility is there, but the snap lock pick of a Phoenix and a Deckard. We've seen the Garrosh pick at times, but Phoenix and Deckard have some of the best control over the front line there with their slows.
Yeah, I feel like if we do end up seeing that Garrosh direction, it's going to be way too much control there. So much so that Ballistix, I feel like with the Warrior priority, if they're going to go into it, I'd like to see something more like that Anubarak or that Muradin. They end up going with the Anubarak. I was originally hoping to see the Muradin, but still a fine pickup, and again, more popular here within Korea.
That also begs the question that we might see Stukov later. You get the follow-up CC beyond that Anubarak. Obviously, Malfurion has taken a hit, so we'll see if that continues to be in play for Magi.
For the second ban.
Probably not going to be in the Warrior choke, knowing that there are already double Warriors picked on the other side. There you see that Junkrat. So with that in mind, if Gen.G's the one banning that out, isn't that, again, more focus on the SDE and then whatever that wave clear is that Gen.G wants to pick up for themselves to, be, again, deny the hero pool of SDE?
It is not the most common thing, but even Gen.G and also Ballistix rarely did play Falstad on this map. They can actually macro this one out. It is a smaller map indeed, but there are a few other picks which is Falstad just having some macro control. And against Blaze, when we do not have a Dehaka, I think it's actually becoming better of a choice now.
Muradin Blaze, very safe, very standard. We still have that last pick, the damage dealers. We still need one more for Ballistix here, and probably most likely in the form of SDE. The mage play, we know he can go that route at times.
Or the more standard will be just the mage like Li Ming, but as long as he can break in and get a kill, which will be really hard, but he does turn around and pick Jaina instead.
Really happy to see the Jaina there over the Li Ming, just considering the battleground itself. A reasonable amount of kill potential, maybe not as much late game snowballing into those team fights, but it's going to provide a lot more that Ballistix absolutely is going to need now that they see this very slow control play. The Phoenix within the 1-4, Blaze into the off lane. It's going to be a hard time here, I feel like, for Ballistix, but a nice hybrid there into that last selection. We'll see what Gen.G wants to pick up. I feel like with the Junkrat ban, this is going to be a pretty curious pick, and there it is. That's what I was saying, is banning out the Junkrat in this type of situation doesn't make sense because it's the more prominent one for them to select, and I thought it had to do with limiting SDE a little bit harder, but with the Jaina picked up, it didn't seem to make that much sense, but I'm glad to see that the Junkrat ban seems to make sense now that a wild pick like Nazeebo come into life.
Nazeebo does have options at 13, most notably Ice Block, but Anubarak, as we've seen at times, when Anubarak goes in and he uses all of his abilities and you don't get a kill, sometimes it's hard to make your way out. It's even harder to make your way out when you have a wall of zombies around you, so it is something to consider that the single target damage obviously can be there. You can get the lockdown potential, but the Nazeebo is something, the rumblings were here, the rumblings were there, and we thought there's no way, but he comes in, and we're ready. I mean, this is Nazeebo. And here's the storm. I'm excited. I've been waiting for Nazeebo for a while.
It is the best map from Nazeebo, and I think Ballistix took a hard hit. I think they actually lost the draft because oftentimes in Korea, when you pull out Jaina, you do need that bunker as an exit route. But in this case, Blaze was taken by Gen.G, so they had no other option. I think SDE Jaina pick was on the fly, actually. They need some kind of mage, but Li Ming does not really help against Muradin. Blaze is going to be very hard to get the kill, so they just had to pick Jaina for the burst damage. Let's see if it works out in game, though.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this does function, as we said, with SDE kind of moving over to the Jaina and then the Nazeebo coming through. You guys, though, have faith here in the Nazeebo himself. 86% towards Gen.G. I feel like that's probably more towards Gen.G than it is with Nazeebo. I don't, you know. That is a good point that you bring up, and I know this is probably not going to happen in this game where you were talking about earlier about the zombie wall and how big of a problem that can be. Locust Swarm just rips right through that puppy. I'm just saying it's a maximum amount it's a pretty reasonable amount of healing to do with that. It used to be the answer. It was the old school answer.
I've been on the Locust Swarm thing of like, there are situations where Locust Storm comes in. Yeah. We also saw the pick for Regen Master earlier in our previous series. I don't know if it ever got completed, but this is a very easy map to finish Globe Talent. So if you want to go Regen Master to make sure you can survive those diving situations, then I think this is going to be the map.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we do have game number 2 ready on Tomb of the Spider Queen between Gen.G and Ballistix.
Dread and I waiting desperately to see what Nazeebo's level 1.
Yeah.
Do we get toads? Do we get spiders?
We
got spiders, baby.
All right, so one thing to keep in mind, actually, here as we get the introductions done. Actually, you know what? I just want to dabble here into the Nazeebo. One thing I want to talk about is Nazeebo with crowd control. A lot of people underestimate how Nazeebo spiders function, right? You throw out the jar, it hits the target, the spiders chase the target. Crowd control actually increases the damage output of those spiders because if you move faster than the spiders, they literally just don't get the damage output out. So anytime you can see that setup enabled with that, and you know who has a really good long period of time lockdown that makes it very easy, is Decker King. Any amount of slow, any amount of root, either one of those is going to be enough to maximize the damage potential of those spiders.
My favorite thing of talking to the players earlier this week was I asked Rich, obviously he was the one that played Sergeant Hammer during Mid-Season Brawl, and it has forever changed the meta. You know, I'm not saying it's for the better or the worse, because Sergeant Hammer does have some quirks about her. I said, is there any other hero that you might play this weekend that might change the meta? He said, if we do, it probably won't be me playing the hero. We found out we've got a Nazeebo here from Reset, so we'll see how effective this will be in the spider build in particular.
And before the action really begins to kick off, J-How, I'm going to ask one more question here, reflecting a bit more towards the Nazeebo. Do we get Gary the Guard, or is this the Ravenous Spirit moment?
Ravenous Spirit does have a lot of potential for the reasons that you highlighted just moments ago about the slows, the lockdown. Ravenous Spirit, you can kind of run away from it. But what happens when you can't run from that terrifying monster? I mean, it's like, you know, you ever have those nightmares where you're being chased by something, you just can't run fast enough, and you're just so, you wake up desperate?
That's the spirit.
Yeah, well, that's the spirit, but you don't wake up from this nightmare.
You do not. You just go back to the Hall of Storms, or it's GG. Either way, it is going to be interesting to see what unfolds here for Gen.G. Man, you talk about you having some of the fear. You know, back when I played, that thing did way more damage than it does today. Still one of my favorite heroics, but either way, getting back to the action here when it comes to control of the lanes. So far, you know, it feels like Ballistix falling behind a little bit when it comes to the control, but look at that with Moggy hitting that lurking arm there, and the setup from Hooligan. They find themselves first blood. Great job there from Ballistix.
They're going to need a lot more of that. That's in a gank situation, and that's where it's going to execute, is the double stun from Manuberak into the lurking arm, into the full Blizzard combo. Nice body blocks behind that as well. That's easy now, but it gets much more difficult in those 5-on-5 situations when you have the counter CC coming at you, potentially in the form of a Blaze or that Deckard. So right now, that is a good start, but getting multiple picks in that fashion is actually incredibly difficult to do, I think, on Tomb of the Spider Queen. So we'll see if they are able to get more outside of the realm and try and get that early snowball going through those picks, because it will be nowhere near that easy later.
Will very much not be that easy to be able to get the setup. Look at this here, as the Murden did end up collecting the camp there, but I love the fact that Hooligan was not willing to let them pick it up whenever they would like, knowing that they captured it earlier, trying to force Gen.G a little bit here and there. But Rich with the transition down, trying to focus onto the night camp skirmish, will end up warping over as Moggy trying to thwart things there with the lurking arm.
Nazeebo, we know that was almost like baseball. Like, we saw Kyocha, he was jet propulsioning by, and as he's going, it was like just throwing it up like softball style. Let's give him the hammer. But yeah, Nazeebo post level 20, everybody knows it's very intimidating, and obviously the level 4 talent making sure to get that bonus health and mana there off that. Jiang surviving, and he's just baiting right now and just missing on that lurking arm on Rich, and now they're turning the fight. They're turning it on Hooligan.
Yeah, ended up using the passive and the leap in. Jiang giving 4 members that armor, but yeah, for sure that had to have been a bait by Jiang. He had his passive up and did not even begin to channel his E at any point in time there, trying to see if they can extend out a little bit too far, but Gen.G keeping things under control here.
It's fine. Trust me, it's fine. He just walks away. You know, we'll continue to keep an eye on Nazeebo's stacks. Is currently on his baseline, sitting on 60 stacks. He is stacking up very rapidly in this game.
And, you know, Nazeebo has one of the most probably important, you know, stacking opportunities when it comes to his, again, the late game damage output and scaling that he has for himself. Hold up, though. Burrow Charge going to land there with the Impale follow-up. Reset is just fine there. Throws down the zombie wall. But The more important thing here is that Ballistix got themselves a couple of gems. Now 39 gems turned in there into control, but it comes at a cost there. It's more gems turned in on the bottom half here, and now Kyocha may be out too far there. Jaina ends up hitting the ice land, not going to be able to get out of there, and Blaze drops there. Gen.G falling behind everywhere here, J-Hal.
Ballistix, again, this is very reminiscent of game number 1, where they had a very early start, a very good start, getting those few picks. But we've got to continue to elaborate on the fact that it takes much more than that against Gen.G. There are so many nails in the coffin. That final nail in the coffin is where you win the game. But so many times you're like, man, this sure does take a lot of nails to get Gen.G out of here. They are so good, so strong, so resilient. And they have so much firepower as this game goes on. But right now, Ballistix in control as they have the first web weavers of the game. They have good sieging potential. Remember, this is pre-changes to Stukov. So if you find yourself in an area, that lurking arm is still until you cancel it, or unless somebody else stuns you out of it. So you do have that potential.
Big lurking arm going to be dropped there. SCE with the Pierce ending up landing the double slow, but nothing to be gained here, at least not yet for Ballistix. They get the siege out. Jimmy having a very disproportional laning mismatch for him on the top half in favor of Raynor, so that's going to be difficult for Blaze to be able to deal with in the long run. Ballistix has to be pretty comfortable with what they ended up picking up. A minimum double front wall with the rotation towards the top half, and again, Raynor has been in a very disproportionate lane. He has been able to rip through that thing. But Gen.G did not fall too far behind and experience these front walls worth a lot less than they once used to be. And so now it's all about this web weaver phase. And can Gen.G get these turn-ins before the 10 spike and maybe some kill potential opportunity for Ballistix?
Well, you also mentioned that matchup for Raynor. Again, we are seeing Behemoth Armor picked up, so he wants to give the pepper over to those heroes. So as long as he has somebody willingly standing there in front of him trying to wave clear, that will favor the stack. Nice Stormbolt there by Tist. Dude, zero ping is legit for these guys. They do this in their daily routine at home, but they get it here, and it looks so much better. Like, this is insane, the high-level play. There goes the stun, the slow, but he's got friends. As Magi comes in, puts the lurking arm, just misses.
We said did end up making the transition down, looking to join in with the rest of the squad, as we do see Jung-Ha there on the Rel, dropping off 19 gems for herself, probably going to be anchoring that bottom half. It's Phoenix and Blaze making the transition on the side of Gen.G.
Nazebo, of course, when you go this build, you go the extra spiders. When you hit an individual target or one target in general, that can really be anything. You can proc it off of a minion, and then those spiders will go chase. So there are different ways to utilize that. So we'll see if we can get that value. Still 66 stacks on that. But more importantly, 103 stacks on the baseline. Here we've got a fight breaking out. SDE, the cocoon comes out, but it is going to be too late, as that's going to be the first kill for Gen.G.
Yeah, and Gen.G's now just picking up their heroics. Rich actually gonna get slammed against the wall there. He's not going to be able to make it out, but SC with that Lornado getting pushed down. Door toss in. Tistons up picking that up for himself. Gen.G up 2-1 in this trade as the flailing swipe gets thrown out by Maki. Jung-Ha trying to leap around, but the body blocks. The Ravenous Spirit getting dropped down there. Not enough damage to be able to pick up the kill. Jung-Ha kites away. My goodness, Urel is a monster.
This is insane to see as the spiders are out in full effect. Hooligan trying to defend, but it's not enough in time as Gen.G does finally get their first turn in. And it wasn't without some action there. But as you said, Ravenous Spirit.
All right, so
he lives on.
It's very important, ladies and gentlemen. You saw that Ravenous Spirit. I want you to remember how much damage that did into your brain, okay? Because later into the game, I want you to keep your eye on that little thing flailing its arms towards the right hand of your screen. Because if it touches those health bars, they're going to be dropping very, very quick. Gen.G, with that skirmish, pick themselves up the Web Weaver phase. And honestly, their siege capabilities are drastically greater than that of Ballistix. We see the Salvo go out with the 3-man burrow charge. Nothing going to be gained yet here, JL.
Oh, the burrow charge went under. The Lornado is locking out Hooligan. He's trying to get out of there, but Rich is chasing him down. Does get some damage, but we also see the Water Elemental on top of that. Tits comes over for the support, so the trade out in favor of Rich as they get the first takedown. The wall has gone down, and Ubrak, the only casualty so far.
But look at that bottom siege on that Web Weaver. It has been unscathed. There's so much value there for Gen.G on the bottom half of the battleground. So much so, you see the 4-man rotation up. Look at that. We see the Sapphire drop there. Flailing Swipe forced out from Magi. Will Rich end up looking for the warp? No, first
Tist.
Oh, yeah. You know he wants to go over there. We see the Dwarf Toss. Stormbolt. It's going to land.
There's the slow. Do they get the follow-up lockdown as Jung-Ha comes in? Does get knocked back by that Lornado outside of that route. So the zoning control definitely there for Sake, keeping everything at bay. But as you said, all of that siege damage that has now accumulated. Now you look up at that scoreboard. Things have been even up until this point. But now it's almost 13-12. it will be momentarily, so Gen.G starting to take the lead.
And the most important thing to be able to keep track of is in the lower right-hand side of your screen. 59 gems in the hands of Gen.G after that Web Weaver phase. They already can force that turn-in, and Ballistix doesn't have the 12 opportunity. If Ballistix is going to make a play here, it's going to be with a heavy trap opportunity whenever they siege with those Knights throughout mid. They need to constrain vision control over that, because without a 13 talent tier, they need to make sure that Gen.G is split up in this double anchoring position they're going to be in. And I can't help but feel like Cocoon is going to be the tool that they use to make that happen.
Hooligan comes in, does eat a hammer. Jung-Ha comes in for support, supplying that armor. She jumps in. Magi with the zoning out for now, but zoning, oh, I was going to say, he might be in trouble of his own, but the Lornado unable to pull him in along that wall. But Ballistix, they're holding strong for now, but as you said, without that 13, Gen.G now looking to complete that turn-in.
Interesting decision for Ballistix to be able to move up and make that happen, but it did stalemate things off over that turn-in long enough to reliably have the 13 within, you know, a short time frame as these Web Weavers descend. But things are not over yet here, J-Hal. I cannot highlight how effective Nazeebo is at sieging. Probably one of the best backliners to be able to just throw out as many spells as possible and be a problem. When I say he's great at sieging, it's not with his raw damage output, it's how much poke and prod he's going to put onto Ballistix health bars. As the Web Weavers now looking to join in the rest of the ranks here of Gen.G.
The zoning out by Magi, the lurking arm goes down. Rich continuing to step forward with this team. Now as that starts to go, here comes Blaze. There's going to be the jump in by Tis. They do get the bunker down. They are going in forward. SC trying to retreat, is not able to make it as the Ravenous Spirit continuing to wreck the backline of Ballistix. We wonder, where does it come in?
Oh, that was so very close to be able to get that damage. The well cannot out-heal the damage of Ravenous Spirit, and that is going to be another kill for Reset and Friends. Highlight I want to bring up with that last skirmish. Jung-Ha's leap on Yrel was the only reason that jet propulsion did not just pretty much obliterate Ballistix backline. SC did end up dropping here, and Gen.G now making a lot happen as this keep is going to drop. When the Web Weaver phase descends, they will have the 16 talent tier. They will not have a Web Weaver phase, but neither will Ballistix. So likely we're going to find ourselves in that boss type circumstance. In Ballistix, it just feels like everything, all resources here have withered away.
Things were just so close in that 11 to 11, that 10 to 11 in that area. And now all of a sudden things look so incredibly different, that 16 to 13. And now for Ballistix, the general rotation for most teams when they get to this point, as you said, when you don't have that turn and you have that talent tier advantage, you look towards the boss. For Ballistix, they need to find a way to get a turn in. And it looks like they're moving down towards the area. At least they were contemplating it. Right now, they're being very cautious. They finally make their way over, but Tis, he's going to find his way in. See if they can. If Tis steps out, Hooligan and team, they're going to look to try and get the takedown.
Can't get drop the Cocoon.
There it is.
Oh, but they missed the root. Actually, root is going to get popped there, but it might be a little bit late. They end up getting it there. Great use of the passive there from Magi, locking it down and abusing that 13 talent tier. Hammer is going to send it out there, but Jaina actually just getting one shot there. Salvo goes through, bunker going to be dropped, and look at Ballistix. Everybody's health will falling so low. Reset with the Ravenous Spirit, trying to rip them apart.
SC was able to get the interrupt on that with the penetrating round, and now he's turning the fight here. Rich is in deep. He's trying to trade out. He does get one trade out, but now Hooligan, he comes in with the stun, gets the lockdown. SC trying to survive, but you can see Reset continue to put out so much damage. Doesn't have that 20 for those auto attacks, poisons just yet, so the skill shot's not landing. A 2-for-2 trade, but that boss, he said this trade is definitely in favor of me.
Lot of siege damage there towards that top keep after the mid keep already being removed off the battleground by Gen.G. Gen.G does not have the opportunity to get the Web Weaver phase for themselves, and that skirmish really just enabled that top boss to be a major, major problem. But there is still a small silver lining. Ballistix, they held on long enough to get a Web Weaver opportunity with the 16 window. It is by no means the game over when they get that control. They have so much more pressure they need to apply to Gen.G, but there is a win condition we haven't seen for a hot while here. Let's see if they can make it happen.
Well, Tis, he's going in again. He's going to get the Cocoon onto the bunker, making sure that there is no safety target, but the Lornado keeping so many members of Ballistix locked in, and now here comes the salvo. Rich comes in with the damage. SC under assault. He's going to be the first takedown. The rest of the team, they're seeing if they can get more. As Gen.G, they are in pursuit. As Jung-Ha, they are diving past him, knowing that he's going to fall momentarily as Rich is making plays.
Reset has 3 seconds on Ravenous Spirit. He's going to be able to get a large flank. Great job by getting the dismount, but at this point, this is going to be 2 dead members if he rips this thing through. Nice burrow charge going out. Not going to, oh, there we see the commitment. A little bit later than I expected, and good night, my sweet prince. No way around that thing. I love this heroic. My goodness. Gen.G end up getting the pick off there, getting out that top keep, and it looks like they've got themselves game number 2.
Don't even get to see 20 tier into Zebo, but it doesn't matter because Gen.G does it before 20 ever comes in. As they're attempting to. Rainer and team, they're holding on. Hooligan goes in with a stun. That's going to be a Nubrak. He goes pop SC. He's trying to walk away. Instead, he gets surrounded in his worst nightmares. The zombie wall is there. He's surviving for now. This is all over, at least momentarily. It seems like Gen.G are just trying to have some fun here, making sure to get some takedowns. Ice block is out. And now they'll turn their attention towards the core.
You know, sometimes you got to send a message here. And after game 1 and 2, if the Ravenous Spirit wasn't enough of a message, I'm sure the last couple of seconds there very much were. Gen.G take a 2-0 lead here into the series, G-Clef. What are our thoughts over the Nazebo pick?
I've got some info from Wiz.
Oh, okay.
From Blossom. It was actually their own strategy. They scrimped against Gen.G a few days ago. They stole it!
They stole it!
And they made this perfect against Ballistix. And see what happens to Jaina without that bunker? She's always caught. She cannot put out the maximum damage that she wants to.
Yeah. That cocoon onto Blaze there was insane. That was such a good call. You made that before. And when cocoon goes down onto that, it's like, wait a minute. Obviously, that's the other side. Excuse me, the Blaze would have been on the other side there.
It's all good. Either way here, I feel like the Ravenous Spirit pickup, I want to know, over the Nazebo overall, it didn't pack the punch that we necessarily wanted to. Obviously, with the very end, there were certain situations where I feel like it looked a little bit better than maybe it would in most situations, especially at the very end there, being able to get the rundown and being able to get that free channel. But it does provide this weird, unique element that I think moving forward, now we know the Nazebo and Ravenous Spirit is a thing, he demands another interrupt. And for anybody at home who maybe isn't a Nazebo main, one of the go-to classics when you run Ravenous Spirit is you self-zombie wall. And when you self-zombie wall, that forces another, you know, it can't be a point, or excuse me, a skill shot that only hits the first target, right? Like you have to, for instance, on Murd and be able to get the full stacks onto your questing talent. And so it provides a very unique draft element that I think might force unique picks like maybe Tychus for the grenade interrupt onto the backline, things like that, and being able to survive and hold their own. Oh, I'm so excited. This tournament meta just got real wild.
Which is faster, the Riptire or the Ravenous Spirit? That's what I want to know.
Riptire definitely is faster.
Yeah, but that Ravenous Spirit starts out further. It's a race. I want to see max range.
Max range.
I don't know. Who gets it? You know, that's the one I'm looking for. It's like if you want to go there, then we get the Junkrat. Let's test it.
You know what, guys? We're going to go ahead and test that really quick here. We're going to figure out who, in fact, does win that race between Ravenous and the Riptire. We're going to go to a quick commercial break later.